Well, the South African chapter of the BRICS Business Council will host the BRICS Economic Indaba, which will outline the roadmap of the 2023 year of chairship. Now, as South Africa assumes the chairship of BRICS this year, the unique and valuable opportunity arises to sustainability advance the developmental needs of both the South African, or both of South Africa and the African continent's economies. The Indaba seeks to galvanise the support of South African business behind the programme of work that's led by the SA BRICS Business Council, as well as to provide business with a broad understanding of the multitude of platforms and projects that they may be able to participate in during this chairship. So for more on this, we are joined by the chairperson of SA chapter of BRICS Business Council, Busi Mabuza. Wonderful to have you on the programme. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Leanne, for the opportunity.
So let's perhaps begin by giving a little bit of a general introduction and overview of the BRICS Economic Indaba and what it's actually all about.
Thank you so much, Leanne. I'll start by first introducing the BRICS Business Council, which was launched 10 years ago in Durban when South Africa hosted the BRICS Summit for the very first time since joining in 2010. So we're celebrating as the BRICS Business Council our 10th anniversary this year. It is a milestone. This is a critical and significant structure of the BRICS work streams because it talks to economic and business collaboration in the interest of development. And we have to do this in a manner that is mutually beneficial amongst our countries. So the biggest opportunity, Leanne, that we're going to be addressing today at the BRICS Economic Indaba is if one looks at just trade alone as an opportunity. South Africa, and I'll pick the two largest countries in terms of economic size of economies and in terms of population size, India and China. South Africa has a trade deficit of, in 2022, it was reported around 16 billion with China. We had a trade deficit of around 7 billion rands with India. Clawing that and narrowing that gap is a massive opportunity for business people that are based in South Africa and in the continent. And we as business will today be unpacking how we can actually reach in to these opportunities and what platforms are available for business to ensure that they're able to access the trade opportunities that this presents.
So let's look at that because, you know, BRICS, there's been a lot of talk around BRICS well, for the last few years, and there's been a lot of interest from other countries that are wanting to join BRICS. And even, I mean, you get some big names out there saying BRICS needs to get bigger. BRICS needs to become more powerful and actually just disrupt the way things are done. So I want to get your perspective on this in terms of business associating themselves with the whole BRICS, how it'll benefit them, and where you actually see BRICS going.
So first of all, the fact that BRICS believes in multilateralism at an age when a number of countries are looking inward and becoming more nationalistic is absolutely critical for our country and for the continent. The theme for this year, which talks directly to our business needs and initiatives, was announced by Minister Pando Leanne, as this is the South African theme for our year of chairship, as BRICS and Africa, partnerships for mutually accelerated growth, sustainable development, and inclusive multilateralism. Accelerated growth without economic growth will not be meaningful. Sustainable development has to talk to development of our respective economies for it to make sense for us as a nation and as a continent. So the opportunity is for us absolutely amazing. We've already seen in the 10 years that the BRICS Business Council has been in place, acceleration of trade and investment. We have companies that have come and set up shop, not just in South Africa, but also in the rest of the continent. And our companies that are operating in the BRICS nations A flagship one that I can quote is, as an example, Naspers, which at some point had a footprint in all of the 5 BRICS nations. Unfortunately, that has shrunk a little bit, but it will correct itself going forward. So the opportunities are across sectors. Let me make an example of our agribusiness working group, for example, Leanne. Opportunities continue to be massive for us to export our very premium produce that we have here in South Africa to those BRICS nations. And once we're able to get those inroads, they find our products absolutely compelling. And we would like to build that kind of relationship in every other sector. We're looking at manufacturing, we're looking at aviation, we're looking at the digital economy. And what I personally like the most is that in doing all of this, skills development straddles across all of these economic sector initiatives that we are doing, because we know that as a country of youth and as a continent of youth, we will have to ensure that skills development couples these initiatives.
Yeah. So this, of course, is ahead of the actual BRICS summit that is taking place a little bit later on. It's happening in August this year. And, of course, the big news for this is that South Africa will assume the chairship of BRICS. What does this mean for me? Like, let's bring it down to the man on the street, because that's really what we're listening to and speaking to, is that, yes, it sounds wonderful and everything, but how is that going to benefit us, that South Africa assumes the chairship?
So South Africa has already assumed chairship. China relinquished its chairship at the end of 2022. So South Africa is already in the chair of the BRICS work stream, Leanne. And what that means for us is that our voice is now amplified as the chair of a structure as massive and as significant as the BRICS nations. And what is most exciting, before I get to the tangible benefits for you and I in the street, is that this will be the first time since 2019 that the BRICS nations will be meeting in person. So the South African government, South African work streams of all the BRICS initiatives have already reached out to our counterparts in the other nations and invited them to South Africa in August, where there'll be a number of activities. The BRICS Business Council will be having its own activities, and we're expecting in the order of 1,000 business people to come. And we are arranging around that opportunities for them to come and look for partnerships, to look for products that they can then, in collaboration with our business people, export to their respective countries. The injection of tourists, be they business tourists as they'll be, will be absolutely fantastic for the country. And we are gearing up, Leanne, to showcase South Africa, because our aviation numbers haven't recovered to pre-COVID levels yet. And we'd like to see those, especially in terms of the international arrivals. We'd like to see those shoot the lights out. We believe that South Africa is a very compelling proposition for tourists. Finally, the business initiatives that are available for businesses that will be coming here will be showcased in partnership with our African counterparts, because the African Continental Free Trade Area and its current incremental implementation has presented us with an ideal opportunity for us to present a united face to our BRICS counterparts. And all of a sudden we'll be speaking for the 1.3 billion people in the African continent. And if there are opportunities for them to buy any of our products whatsoever, I believe that we will be absolutely, probably overwhelmed, but I think we'll be equal to the challenge of meeting those demands, because they'll be accretive to their economy. So I'm hoping that we will add to the initiatives that government have been putting into place to kind of rekindle our economy, which has been struggling in the past while, in a manner that will be felt by every one of us, Leanne.
Yeah. So a quick question, because I know you've got to go by 10:02. I know that that's our deadline with you. You're off to another interview. Obviously, the international relations between countries is of utmost importance, and we know that there's free economic trade between the BRICS nations and between the BRICS countries, and it puts South Africa in a precarious situation, I imagine. And I'm not going to ask you to comment on the political side of things, because that's, you know, we've seen that the ICC are wanting, they've put a warrant of arrest out for the Russian president, and that's a big one, because if he does come to South Africa, that puts us in a situation. However, I think what we need to talk to is that businesses buy in all of this, and South Africa's standpoint on its political relations with countries. This must have an effect on businesses, and I imagine it would be spoken about today as well during your particular Indaba.
Absolutely, it does affect business, but our apex business bodies, Business Unity South Africa and the BRICS Business Council, issued a statement quite some time ago already, Leanne, and I think it is important to emphasize that statement. Business is absolutely heartbroken by the humanitarian crisis that the war and situation in the Ukraine and Russia is causing for the people of those two nations. And business has backed the call of our government for these two nations to get around the table and find a solution to these problems. We, of course, have an example in South Africa when we as a country were at war as though we were two separate nations, but coming together at a table, we were able to find each other, we were able to find each other's humanity, and we're able to move forward. It is imperative for business to support a negotiated settlement, because South African business has exposure in those nations. We have partners, we have people that we work with from all of those nations, and we would like to see those that situation stabilize. So we've backed government to the hilt, and we hope that perhaps with the president chairing the summit, there will be an opportunity for him to make representations to those who will listen that can move the needle on that front, because the economy is stalled by uncertainty that is caused by the situation.
All right, I'm going to let you run off. I know you've got to get onto another interview. Thank you, Busi Mabuza, talking to us as the chairperson of the South African chapter of BRICS Business Council. Speaking about that BRICS Economic Indaba, which is taking place today, it's going to outline the roadmap of the 2023 year of chairship for South Africa. Of course, we are already the chairship. We've taken that over. We are the chair of BRICS at the moment. And, you know, with this comes a lot of interesting discussions. And, you know, one of the things I suppose that's important, and I know it's Busi's very passionate about that, is the benefit of small businesses with all of this and how they'll benefit from it. But most importantly, I think it's infrastructure that is failing South Africa, and that is a big discussion point. And we know that even, I think one of the ministers is traveling to China. It's next month in April to try and figure out how we're going to fix the rail situation. So there's a lot happening behind the scenes that we need to keep a close eye on as well ahead of this BRICS summit.